Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. The market is more bullish than I have seen in years. A lot of you guys have been asking me why the heck I keep wearing coats and hoodies when it's nearly summer, and I wanted to just say that the reason why is because I literally spent all of my money going on in crypto. I put all of it in the market. I went so heavy that I can't afford to pay my heating bill, and so with doing that, I just wanted to make a video talking about why I think that the markets are so bullish. What we're seeing inside of the markets are a lot of the same setups that we saw play out in early 2016, right before that 2017 bull run, and even some of the same sort of cycles that we saw in our last bear market as well. Inside of this next cycle, we're going to see some of the biggest gains that we've ever seen. So for today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what the charts are telling us so that we can be best positioned to capitalize on that move when it takes place. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are to start off today's video, and in yesterday's video we talked a little bit more about what I saw with Bitcoin happening, where I eventually just expected Bitcoin to run upwards of this resistance right here, and that was about $31,750 all the way up to about $32,000, and we're just under that resistance, and so I still think that we're going to make an inevitable run upwards of that. And then that's going to be where I would think that we could see some type of corrective move. After that corrective move, I think big picture, we're going to be seeing Bitcoin running upwards of 40 and 50,000. And that's really signaled by this breakout of such a large, consolidation range. This is a big picture range of, this was 270 days approximately for Bitcoin, give or take a couple days. And now that we've broken out from this range, I think a lot of people are just expecting that Bitcoin's going to be topping and it's just going to sell all the way back down here and do something like this. But the thing people aren't realizing is this is a pretty long-term range, and it's something that we've seen in years past, and that's a little bit what we touched up in yesterday's video, was how anytime Bitcoin is bottomed, we've generally seen about a year-long consolidation, a little bit shorter than that, about 270 to 80 days long. But then that is what's created that beginning stages of the new bull run. And so the question has always been, are we going to end up seeing another run similar to what we saw inside of those last cycles? And up to this point, we have behaved, in my opinion, a lot more bullish, and we've already hit the 236. Now, if we're talking about where we hit in the very beginning cycles, the very first cycle only hit just shy of the 236. In 2016, we hit in between the 382 and the 236. So we're very close to that point that we were at in 2016 before we saw our first sell-off. And so we could see that same sort of point where it is also going to be lining up perfectly with this next resistance that I had drawn. And that's why I say that we really could see some type of corrective move that happens once we do clear that resistance. That's at least what I'm going to be watching for. It's likely that it's the same way that we could have some type of sell-off. If we do clear it above that range high, then in my opinion, we'd be looking upwards of about the 382, the 0.5, and upwards of the 618. And so that's really why I'm going to be looking at around 35,000 as the first real target for this run up. We're going to be close to that. I do think that we're going to end up running up a little bit higher, even if we correct around this move. But then if we can make a move even higher upwards of the 618, that would be taking us to what we saw inside of that last cycle. It doesn't have to play out in that same way. But I think regardless, what we've seen up to this point has been very, very bullish. And with us clearing this 270-day accumulation range, I'm not necessarily expecting us just to run up to this 382 and then collapse all the way back down and make some big sell-off. It is possible. Anything's really possible at the end of the day. But I think because of how long this kind of accumulation was, the only thing that would really happen for a sell-off is for us to come back down and basically consolidate on top of that same range that we just broke out of around $25,000. I think that that is a scenario we could watch for, but I don't want us to ever see the price go back below that because that would show a little bit more weakness in my opinion. Because of the length of accumulation that we've spent in here, because how altcoins look themselves, I think that overall we will see a push that goes up quite a bit higher than most people are expecting. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the SP 500 has broken out. After the news of the CPI data that we saw today, we have seen quite a bit of volatility in here, and so we don't have any sort of confirmation. If we jump into a shorter time frame, in my opinion, this can really go either way. We don't have any sort of true move because we're still below resistance right here. We weren't able to actually break out with this move, and then even after the news, we've seen the sell-off. We did rebound, but you never really know what the heck's going to happen. Overall, all that happened was this and this. So there was really no sort of move any sort of way because we've already gone right back up to the point where right before the news happened. So you never really know what the market's going to do inside of these moments, but I would be a little bit skeptical towards this potential of a head and shoulder top. You know, if the market starts selling off and we start actually breaking down from here, we could see a move all the way back down to this support. And if this support fails at about 4,069, then we'd be looking for a much bigger drop that, in my opinion, would be taking us to about here, which would be about 4,039. But regardless, I think a move to 4,039 would be a pretty solid level that we could see the market end up holding support on. And then it would look like just your typical ABC correction before we'd most likely start to see the next leg up. But I mean, overall, what we've seen up to this point inside of the S&P 500 has been everything we wanted. The market has broken out of descending resistance. It's retested the descending resistance as support. We've made this massive rebound off of that support, and now we're near the range highs, awaiting some type of consolidation that's going to lead to a breakout. At least that's what I believe is going to end up happening. So this is what I'm watching out in the S&P 500. A lot of what's going to be happening in the S&P 500 and Bitcoin is directly tied to the DXY. Haven't given you guys an all-around market update, so I figured today would be a good opportunity of doing so. Now the DXY, it went perfectly to my target at 105.5, and it actually peaked slightly above it. But that was the target that I was watching for. I was also watching here at about 107, and then up here at about 108. And we never ended up coming anywhere close to these resistances. We ended up hitting the first one here, and we've pretty much just instantly rejected all the way back down. So as it stands, the dollar's looking pretty weak. We're sitting here range lows. It's looking like most likely this is going to end up breaking down, although we could see some type of butt flush where we end up rebounding this support. And if that happens, then you definitely got to be a little bit skeptical on the markets, being the S&P 500 and Bitcoin. But the way these look, considering they just broke out, I think that the dollar breaking down is kind of signaling what, you know, a lot of us thought, where the market looked bullish. Or, you know, maybe not a lot of us thought the market looked bullish, but there's definitely a lot of people that have been explaining that the market is bullish. I know that I've been talking about the market being bullish. And so for the most part, I know a lot of you guys as well have been talking to me, whether it's in the Discord server, whether it's emailing me, whether it's on Twitter. And I know that a lot of you guys also follow along with that same thesis. And so really, guys, if we break support, we're going to be looking at a sell-off all the way back down to 97. And then if we're looking at that on a weekly scale, all the way back in here, let's drag this. We'd be looking at around the mid-range of this entire consolidation. And so that's a pretty decent sized move inside of the dollar. If we end up seeing that size of a drop, it'd be about 3.5% in the dollar. But regardless, that's going to be a big sell-off in the dollar. I think that that would give Bitcoin the perfect amount of room to be able to run. And I don't know how high it's going to run, or if it's going to be able to go all the way up to the 618 or the 0.5 just in this next leg. We might still need to go through a little bit of consolidation. And I did talk about that in yesterday's video. So if you do want to go watch that, go check it out. There's a lot of information in there. But now, guys, let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin dominance, because this is at an interesting point where we're now to the point of the max resistance. We're at the range highs. We're either going to be breaking down from these, or we're going to be breaking out from them and going into somewhat of a little move into price discovery. Now, what I want to be talking about in the long term is this descending resistance, and I'll make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. But this is our long-term descending resistance, or at least up to this point. And so depending on the next leg up that Bitcoin takes, I do think that it's going to bleed altcoins. And the question is, when is this going to end up topping? Because what I've kind of drawn out for you guys has been the scenario where we run upwards of about 53 to 55% dominance. And then that's the point where we end up topping. We end up clearing these range highs for a short term, maybe even make this big bounce up. But regardless, I was expecting that we were going to eventually break down from those, and then that was going to lead us into a move all the way back down into price discovery, where Bitcoin dominance drops anywhere from about 10 to 20%. That was really my threshold for where I thought it was going to top. And that's kind of the scenario that I still think is fit. But when I was analyzing this long-term descending resistance, I do think that there is a scenario where we could peak up to 59%. You know, there is that scenario where we could come all the way up to tag this descending resistance one final time before actually starting that downtrend. But here's the thing, guys. If Bitcoin comes all the way up to around 59%, 58% approximately, around that number, what we're going to end up seeing is, more opportunity for altcoins to outperform. Because if we're looking at Bitcoin dominance at, let's just give it a number at 58% right up here, that's pretty close to the same point where we ended up seeing our last cycle for the altcoin. So can you imagine if the Bitcoin dominance is sitting up here and then we make a sell-off from 58, 59% dominance all the way down to 10, 15, 20%, that's going to be a huge cycle for the altcoins. But regardless, I do believe that that's what the markets are pointing to. And that's kind of what Bitcoin's signaling to. That's what the S&P 500 is signaling to. I believe the S&P 500 will go into a brand new cycle. A lot of people are fading it. A lot of people think that the market's bearish. But so far, everything we needed to see for the bulls to be bullish has happened. The market has broken out. It's been a confirmed bottom since all the way back down in here in October, and we've maintained higher highs and higher lows throughout that entire time, along with Bitcoin now clearing this long-term range. So now if we're looking at the altcoins, let's take a look at the total market cap of crypto, and let's talk a little bit about what is happening right here. Now this, once again, is still inside of this range, and it thus far has been a little over 300 days, but we're finally to the point where this is breaking out. And so this is a big range right here that we've been inside of. And I think that a good number that we could be targeting here based off this total market cap is all the way up here around $1.6 trillion. And it could go a little bit shorter than that. I would draw a little bit lower end range target of about $1.5 trillion. But anywhere within this resistance, I think is a pretty solid level that we would be watching for this next leg up. And then from there, we would be once again consolidating in between this level and the breakout point that we're roughly at right now. And we could even come all the way back down to retest that depending on the consolidation and the route that Bitcoin wants to take. But I think that regardless, if we go through some type of shorter consolidation, we don't have to go all the way up to the 618. We could end up topping around the 382, the 0.5, or, we could make that run all the way up there. But we have to be prepared for anything. And that's kind of the route that I'm taking. For me, I was buying a lot throughout this bottom because I'm waiting for the long term of the trend, where we're talking midpoint next year of 2024, even sometime into 2025, when the markets are really picking up like they have in prior cycles. That's really where we want to focus our long-term holds for being able to capture the majority of those moves. So anything that we're buying in the short term, we want to really be looking to hold, and anything that we're buying be something that you want to hold long term. It's not something that you really want to be in and out of, unless that is your personal strategy. I think that it's good to play either sides of the market. But for me, right now, as we've been inside of this bottom, I think it's a much better strategy to actually play the long term, develop long-term positions, do some research into things that you think are going to be very profitable. I've been giving you guys a lot of videos recently mapping out different chains, different things that I think are going to do very well and capture a lot of adoption. And, if you guys want to go back and watch some of those videos, they're scattered throughout the channel. And there's a lot of coins that we've actually talked about. But now that we're nearing this point where we're actually breaking out of these range highs, I'm expecting that we're going to have decent markup to the upside, whether that takes us to all the way to the 618 or whether it's just to the 382. I think regardless, there's going to be a lot of profit to be made, and a lot of the markets are going to be breaking out. But this is just the total market cap. If we come over here and look at the altcoin total market cap, this is where things get pretty interesting, in my opinion, where we're actually seeing the altcoins not able to break out of their range highs. They're still consolidating, below this resistance here. So the range highs are all the way up here at 700 billion. We're still consolidating under this lower high that we saw at the beginning of that correction. So if we're going to end up breaking out, I don't think that the altcoins are going to run all the way to the 618. I think that that's a much less likely scenario. Usually they underperform Bitcoin. And so once again, if we're looking at Bitcoin dominance running upwards of, I would say anywhere from like 53% all the way up to 58, 59%. If we see a move like that for Bitcoin dominance, then at that point we're going to expect to see that these altcoins aren't going to nearly perform as well as Bitcoin, in the same way that they didn't in the last cycle. If we're looking at what happened in that last cycle, altcoins made a much smaller move. Bitcoin went all the way up to the 618, whereas altcoins hit the 236. So we have to be prepared for anything when it comes to this breakout. But I think if we're able to clear the range highs, we're going to go to at least 928 billion, and it's still going to be a pretty sizable move nonetheless. You're looking at like 51%, and so that's just the total market cap of altcoins. If we're coming over here and looking at DeFi, this is really one of my favorites going into this next cycle because I think DeFi has so much potential long term. It's really the staple of where I see crypto getting the majority of the beginning of the adoption. Gaming is big, metaverse is big, NFTs are big, and things like that. But it's really lending and earning yield and being able to do different things like that is really where banks are going to be able to come in, where we're going to be able to do different things like that with our money. And finances are the most important part of crypto, in my opinion. And so now that we're sitting here, we're pretty much at the exact same point that the altcoin total market cap is. In fact, the altcoin total market cap is actually outperforming slightly, which is something that wasn't happening on the beginning run up. But I do believe that that is going to change. I think DeFi is set to outperform as a whole over the cycle. It will go through phases where it won't. But once we clear these range highs, guys, that's really the point where I'm expecting a decent move for DeFi, where at the low end, I think we run up to about 82.5 billion, and we could make an even bigger move upwards of about 100 billion. But I think big picture, regardless of what chart we're looking at, wherever these run up to, we're going to see a move up. We're going to see some type of longer term correction. I don't think it's going to come all the way back down to where we're at, but it will come fairly close. What we're looking at here, big picture, this entire range that we would be breaking from is pretty much, and I'm going to draw this even a little bit lower. This entire range that we're going to be breaking from could also end up acting as support. And so that's really close to where the price currently is today. And so don't be surprised if the market does do something like that, because the market has always done crazy stuff like that. Anytime Bitcoin has uptrended and we've seen moves, which I'm just going to go all the way back in history. Last year, we saw a 72% correction from the high to the low. It ended up retracing all the way back down near the range lows of capitulation. In 2016, we had this first breakout, and instantly after, we saw a 40% correction, right? So this is the type of stuff that's always going to happen. Even in the next leg up, we saw this breakout here, and we instantly retraced all the way back to the beginning of the breakout point. So Bitcoin's going to be volatile. It's just simply the way that Bitcoin always ends up working, right? This one was kind of that same type of way. This one was kind of that same type of way, right? Just massive parabolic moves and big corrections. So we shouldn't get too ahead of ourselves in assuming that Bitcoin's never going to do that. Because if we see another leg up that runs up here, and then we see another type of correction that comes all the way back down to retest this 30K level that we consolidated on in the bull market, there's going to be a huge sort of swing in price, and that's a big move for Bitcoin to actually end up selling off from. So let's assume that we go to 40K, we pull back all the way down to this, 29.5, let's say. That's like a 26.5% move. And if we go all the way up to the 618 and make some type of move back down, that's a 38% move. And it's nothing that we haven't seen in years past. So we definitely have to expect anything. And that's kind of what the levels are showing us, at least in the short term for these markets. Bitcoin goes to the 618 and the altcoins outperform for, I guess the first time that we've ever seen that type of thing, then these things could go much higher. And so that's why for me, while we're at this early point in the cycle, I always say do your research, find ecosystems that are looking like they're going to thrive, find early narratives that look like they could play out, whether it's DeFi, whether it's NFTs. ZK rollups are a big narrative that are playing out. I would highly advise everybody to do some research into those. We also have LSDs, which is liquid staking derivatives. That's a huge narrative that we're going to see a lot of money playing out into. DeFi as a whole is going to benefit. We're seeing decentralized exchanges. We're seeing Metis. We're seeing Arbitrum. I just gave you guys so many different sort of things that you guys could research into. And I think that all of this is going to fuel this next cycle. And so regardless of what the short-term price does, regardless of whether we hit this level or this level and pull back to this level, no matter what, prepare for the long term, because if we're looking at this from a long-term basis, we're going to expect to see sometime, whether it's midway 2024, whether it's sometime 2025, we would expect to see this market cycle breaking out, making new all-time highs. And I think that this next cycle is one that we want to have preparations before, because in my opinion, it's going to be much bigger than many people are anticipating. And so if you guys found value in this video, make sure you guys do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing. If you guys want to end up following all my trades, if you guys want to follow anything that I'm investing in, like I said, I just talked about all the long-term stuff with crypto. If you want to see how I'm personally positioned, which altcoins I'm going to be invested in for the long term, you guys definitely got to check out my Discord server. You can actually sign up for my Discord server by going inside the links to the description of this this video. And from there, you're going to be able to go to my website. On my website, you're actually going to be able to sign up. It's just a one-time fee. And from that one-time fee, you're going to have lifetime access to anything that I'm investing in the markets. This is even outside of crypto. If I do anything in the stock market, if I do anything, even inside of NFTs, whatever it is, I post it inside of the Discord server for everybody to be able to see for themselves. So if you guys want to be able to follow that over the course of this next bull run, we got 3 years of upside potential, and thus far we've had a lot of profitable picks. So check it out. Links are in the description. And with that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.